So good morning, everybody. So nice to have you here. I'm thinking that we have quite a few new faces, names that I've not become used to. So I want to request that everybody put in the chat where you are at the moment, because we actually have people from all over the globe. So if you don't mind, just put in the chat, good morning from wherever you are. So we can have a look. I think it's interesting. Yeah, Linda, I'm also in Pretoria, down the road from you. Okay, so welcome to, I was counting this morning and I realized it's month 16 of us hosting our OD talks online. Where we used to call them OD cafes because it was a nice social event at our offices in Woodmead. And I still miss the buzz of people arriving and the smell of the fresh coffee and the muffins and the breakfast and the conversations and just the noise of a lot of people having nice conversations. And but at the same time, I think what the world has opened up for us is to come together from all over the world, which previously wasn't possible. We had to be in the same city or the same province to even be able to be together on any of these talks. So welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know Willsview Academy, we've been in the OD world since the mid-90s. Very passionate about OD as a profession and what that means. We've started an OD school back in 2012, where we have one of the big discussions there is always what is the definition of OD. Yesterday, we kicked off our new certification. We do an employee engagement and experience certification, brand new, where we partner with Willis Towers Watson. And yesterday was the first day. I attended as a student. Christy was the facilitator. And one of the organizations that joined have recently started creating an OD department. So they called themselves OD officers. And a lot of their work was around role profiling and job descriptions and performance management. And I was thinking, I'm so glad that OD is becoming more of a, I don't know, a known profession almost in South Africa, that there should be a department or at least a few people with the OD in their title. But also that I think we're still a long way off to having a shared understanding of what OD actually is, especially in South Africa. I don't know about other countries. I feel like we're behind. But anyway, so what we do, people like me and Christu and the rest of you guys, is to stick our noses in wherever we can to have conversations about OD, to figure out what it is for other people, what it's supposed to be. And of course, what we went through in the past year and a half globally has also changed the role of OD. So that's what we're going to be discussing today in a conversation that we had in one of our other OD talks, I think 2 months ago. Somebody called these the impossible times. And we thought, well, what is the role then of OD in impossible times? What are the roles of leaders and what are the role of OD to support those leaders in these difficult times, in times of crisis? So I'm also part of another group called Small OD Group, and it's sort of an email trail where there's lots of conversations happening. Allon is part of that. Joseph is part of that, Christu. And there's been a few interesting conversations, and we managed to get together on a Zoom call the other night. And there we had the same conversation. And I realized on that call, there were people from all over, a lot of Americans, but people from other places in the world as well. And again, the conversation was the same. What is the role now? So Allon is back for a third time on one of our OD talks. And we're happy to host him again. And we are very excited because whenever we have conversations with Allon, it is frank, it is real. We don't try and sugarcoat anything. And we think that the wealth of knowledge and experience that you bring, Allon, is just something spectacular. So free rein to you to have these conversations. And I think let's kick off with what you said to me and Christu the other day in our conversation last week. you were talking about it's a new ball game. Everything's changed. And we previously talked about we have a toolkit and what's in this toolkit, or the bag of tools, bag of tricks that we had. And even those tools have changed. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to you, and we see where it goes from there.
Okay, well, good morning. I'm honored to be invited. I'm honored to see the guests here. Some are return and some are first timers, but I'm always humbled for that people are willing to hear what I have to say. I want to say a priori that whatever I say is true for the moment I say it. It may not be true a little later on, because it is a new ball game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make about 6 or 7 points, okay, and then we can open it for discussion. I think that's the way we can do this. So I'm going to start by saying that when you drive in snow, okay, I learned to drive in snow, okay. When you learn to drive in snow, you don't turn on your bright lights, and you don't even look straight ahead in front of you. There's a line on the side of the road, a line, a painted line on the side that marks the side of the road. And you basically look at the line at the side of the road to keep your bearing, because if you look straight ahead, you're not going to see anything very much. That's number one. And also in severe rain in monsoon, I had to drive once. I made the mistake of renting a car in Hong Kong during a monsoon. And same thing. You can't look ahead. You don't see anything. And I think that in the present situation that we're in, a future focus, okay, looking into the future, what is our mission? What are our plans? What is the KPI? What is our strategy? Where are we going? These are important questions, but we need to ask each other, one another, how relevant they are. Now, yesterday I sat with a planner, and she was planning spare parts for the next year and a half. I said to her, what are your assumptions? She had 5 or 6 assumptions. I said, well, do you think any of this is going to materialize? She says, no. Well, this is like a ritual. We're doing a year plan. We don't know the supply chain. We don't know the availability of material. We don't know if anyone's going to buy our product. But management wants a year projection. And I said, and how accurate has that projection been over the last year? She says, it's been useless over the last year. It would be far better if we were to look at a month ahead and maybe 3 months ahead, and then work on the second month from the third back and from the first forward. But they're focused on a year and a 2-year plan. So there's something ritualistic in OD about dealing with what do we want to become and what is our vision and what renewing ourselves and remaking ourselves and as people and as organizations. And what I'm suggesting, that in very tough times, it may be far more useful to look at the white line at the side of the road and navigate the next 100 meters or next 200 meters. Because I think it was Truman who said, in the long run, you're a long runny egg. But we don't know anything about where we're going. We don't know. We just don't know. It's total chaos or confusion or ambiguity. So I think that the first point that I want to say is that we should look at our tool bag, and we should basically say, okay, we need to drive with our long distance lights dimmed, look at the side of the road and focus on what we can do and how we can support organizations now with the problems that they have now in order not to doom ourselves to even more irrelevance. And why do I say even more? Well, people who know me know that I think that OD is overly encumbered with Western values, but I'm not going to go on that now. But I think we should look very much at the white passes in Hebrew, the white line at the side of the road. That's point number one. So present focus, short-term interventions. Number one. Number two. There is a trade-off between getting the data, okay, getting the science, because OD is based on social science, and using our intuition. I've recently read the book Pandemic, the Premonition by Michael Lewis about the pandemic, and they talk about it, and I recommend that book very highly for anyone who is in OD. Once, what was the problem in the initial stages of the pandemic was that in order to take action, you need to get the data. But by the time you got the data, it was too late. So there is a trade-off between getting the data and using your intuition. Okay, and OD is a social science, and we like to base the work that we do on accurate diagnosis as much as possible. But sometimes by the time you get the data, it's too late. I'll give you an example. We have someone in a position, he's gone through 3 months and he looks incompetent. You know, he looks incompetent. He's a CFO, he's making mistakes, he's asking basic questions. Your external auditor, you know, keeps warning you. He's not an idiot, but he's making mistakes. And the investors are really getting nervous. So on one hand, it would be really fair to say, well, you know, the guy has 3 months, okay? Let's give the guy a chance. Let's train him. Let's give him a coach. And on the other hand, if he's incompetent in 6 months, we have a problem, especially if between the 3rd month and the 6th month, 8 years go by. Because in some professions, what we're going through now, every month is a year. For example, supply chain. For example, finance. For example, sales. For example, each month is not a month, it's a year. So are we going to base ourselves on data, or are we going to base ourselves on our intuition that this guy isn't going to make it? Okay, so I think that in all our decisions when we support management, it would be useful if OD would support the trade-off, managing the trade-off between data and intuition. Okay, because we don't, not we don't, but they don't, or no one has time to make major mistakes when everything is basically playing against you. So the second point would be the first point is the white line at the side of the road. And the second is the trade-off between intuition and data. I want to once again recommend the book, The Premonition by Michael Lewis, which goes into great detail about using data and using intuition in severe crisis. Okay. And I'm not saying we have a Dr. George who in all our correspondence stresses the need not to be careless and throw the science aside. And I want to ensure everyone that I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is what dilemmas we face when we don't have time to get it right. Not us as consultants and not manager as management. Okay, that's the second point. The third point is painful. Okay, OD is not only not clear in its boundaries. I don't have a problem with that. It's something you have to live with, right? Like a backache. But we're not all that fast. We're not Speedy Gonzales, okay? But the world is moving very quickly. Things are changing very, very quickly, and so we need to pardon me, I'm not politically correct, but we need to move our ass, really, get moving, because and speed is a devil in many cases. So part of the issue that has been pointed out to me correctly is that the managers are quick, or going, perhaps they have too little time to think and are imagining too quick. So that may be true, but we tend to slow things down, justifiably so. But if we want to be heard, we need to go quickly. Now, I want to go into the field of depression. There's an interesting book written, I think, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, on masked, M-A-S-K-E-D, masked depression. Depression having 8 or 9 symptoms. Many of them aren't sadness, okay? It could be lethargy, could be lack of libido, it could be constipation, it could be aches and pains. And in mass depression, what they discuss patients who took a pill, okay, doctor didn't know what they had, and wow, the symptoms disappeared. So they were working backwards. Okay, start with the cure, see if that's the disease. I know that when you're diagnosing lower back pain, if you have a sacroiliac problem, like I do, what they do is inject your sacroiliac. They don't know what you have because you really don't know what's going on in the lower back. If it works, then you had problem with your joint. What I'm saying is that sometimes we have to intervene and see if it works without knowing exactly what it is. And I'll give you an example. Okay, let's say that our marketing team and our sales team are at each other's throats all the time. We don't know yet. We don't know if it's teamwork. We don't know if one of them is incompetent. We don't know if the process is clear. We don't know nothing. And the people are scattered all over the world, and they're not really available. And the manager is pushing to get it done. We don't even know what it is. So do we take our time and do things properly, or do we intervene? Let's try the process. Let's check the competence. Let's do something and see if it works. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good way to do things. It's not a good way to do things, but we're not talking about the good way of doing things. We're talking about adapting ourselves to a very difficult period where we need to keep relevant. Now, in how do you say it? In China, they use barefoot doctors. These doctors would get a little bag, and they'd get penicillin, and they'd get a tetanus shot, and they went around and they administered this to everyone. And by the way, stomach disease went way down, and a lot of people died. The Russian army used the feldsher, which was a something like a barefoot doctor, and they just gave everyone who was ill a whole package of pills and a couple of shots. Did that work? For some people it worked, for some people it didn't work. But in both cases, it treated most problems, and severe problems were not treated. Okay, if you had something, really strange going on with you, they never knew what it was. Okay, what I'm saying is that if we stay in this situation much longer, we are going to need to think about a basic set of interventions which are applied generically, which may or may help some of the problems, because things are going so quickly, or not so quickly as much, they are so complex that we really don't have the time to do things properly. That's a horrible thing to say, but the management doesn't have time to do things properly either. What I'm saying here is that we need, there's a difference when I'm saying we need to move faster to the whole bunch of tools that I dealt with associatively. That's the third point, faster. So first is look at the line on the side of the road. Balance between intuition, and science. 3, move faster. 4 is going to be very controversial. We train people, we coach people, we teach people. That takes a long time. When we see incompetence, I think that one of the things that we need to work on is outsource or replace. Because the training, the coaching, okay, the training, the coaching, the slow growth of people, it's good, but it's for different times. You know, there's a poem, I forgot the name of it, Sailing to Byzantium. It starts, "This is no country for old men, the one in another's arms." Okay, so this is no time to slowly coach, train, and develop people when they are in a key position and they are faltering. Okay, the time isn't there. It's like we have a newsreader and a newscaster who doesn't speak English properly or doesn't speak whatever language. You're not going to put him on TV and coach him until he learns to speak properly. We have people in roles who are failing, and in any other situation, they would be trained, they would be developed, they would be coached. What I am suggesting is that in the way that we work, okay, and in the way that we work, and we have to adapt ourselves to that. Is that what we is that a good thing? No, of course not. And we, by the way, may get rid of someone who's incompetent and place him with someone who's even more incompetent. That's very possible. But we know that the competent person, the incompetent person, it's not worth the risk that we're taking. So I think that train and develop and all that's fine. But competence needs to be, if it's not there, it needs to be, if there's incompetence, we need to replace it or outsource it. And when our managers talk about, well, he's not functioning, give him 10 hours of coaching. It's good for the coach, it's good for the consultant, but it's not good for the organization. May not be. Okay, now the next thing is going to be very controversial. Okay, OD without teamwork is that's like you know, an asthma patient without oxygen. Okay, but we love teamwork. We build teams, we develop teams. Teams, you know, teams make the world go round. Teamwork is important. By the way, you ask a lot of people in Asia how important teamwork is. They don't even know what the word is half the time. But at least for those of us who are steeled in Western tradition, teamwork is important. However, in this situation, okay, expertise may trump teamwork. So we may have 20 people, okay, and 19 say something, but our expert doesn't believe that. And OD generally builds consensus. And in times like this, I think that we need to allocate an awful lot of importance to expertise. And we see that in the way Corona is being managed here. Our politicians, okay, are miserable, corrupt, incompetent last government and the present government, which is better but not as good. They just didn't listen to anyone, right? And the experts get cursed. Their homes are guarded and whatever. And the government boasts that they're doing teamwork. Yeah, they're doing teamwork, but the only person who understands the problem, they're ignoring them. What I'm saying is, I've seen teams who are working on a solution to a problem, and the only person who understands is a bad teamwork player, is a bad team player. And I think that if we were in this difficult time, if we pray and make a religious icon out of teamwork at the expense of expertise, there may be critical mistakes which we are making. And of course, the managers with whom we work are making. So I would say, let's take the teamwork off its pedestal and again talk about teamwork, expertise, making that balanced. You can't have expertise ram decisions down everyone's throat and expect them to be done, because they're not going to do it. But on the other hand, if there's mass consensus by a bunch of idiots about something, big problem. And I think that in times like this, there is more salience to going with your expertise. Next issue, very, very important. When we work with managers in times like this, they know they're going to look bad. If they're going to look bad, whatever, okay? They're going to look bad because it's very hard to look good now. Very hard to look good. There's so many unknowns. There's so much stuff going on, so many plates in the air. They're going to look good. Part of the way that we can gain their trust is if we discuss with them, okay, are they willing to look bad and do the right thing? Okay, are they willing to listen to their people and ignore them, or listen to their investors and ignore them, to do the right thing? Do they want to be right, or do they want, you know, a long-term employment at the company? What does doing the right thing mean to their career plans? We need to be able to deal with the fears and the political agendas of the decision makers to gain their trust. Otherwise, what we'll be doing is what I call as-if discussions. We're going to be discussing something, but as if we're discussing something else. Okay, so once you get that dialogue going, and you really understand your manager's agenda and his fears or her fears, I think you can get a real dialogue going in terms of the choices that the manager, she or he, makes, and certainly build a level of trust. And by the way, it's very true for you as a consultant. Okay, what dilemmas do you face? Because when people don't have work, and many OD people don't have work today, and someone says to you, well, look at that product manager, he's useless, spend 20 hours coaching him. It's very tempting to do those 20 hours. But you're going to do those 20 hours and you're not going to look good. It's not going to be successful, but you need those 20 hours. You know, those 20 hours are going to be able to allow you to put a little money in the bank, or not dip into your savings, as most of us are doing in these days. Okay, that's a dilemma that we face as well. Okay, doing whatever work comes our way. We have agendas also. And for example, I actually told a manager, I said, look, you want me to work with this lady, okay? I'm 72 years old. I had plans to travel in the world, okay? I'm stuck at home. I can do those 20. I don't think a lot is going to come out of that, right? I can do it. You want to take the risk? I'll do it. I don't think I can succeed. That's a good dialogue. A bad dialogue is, it may work, let me do it. So the manager has solved his problem of looking good. He's coaching her. I have my 20 hours, but it ain't going to work. Now that discussion needs to be open. Because if it's not open, we become part of the disease, because everyone in this time looks bad. Okay. Okay. Then we have an issue of the amount of information that people have. Okay. Clearly, we have too much information. We have a lot of junk, a lot of bad things that we as consultants know, and that the managers as management know, and the disease controllers know, a lot of it. And one of the things that we don't have are proper filters. give you an example of a manager, and I'll give you an example of a consultant. The consultant hears, he goes to a call center, and he hears that, I will say they're selling insurance policies, and he hears that every single customer is unhappy. Not only that, not only are they unhappy, but they've been improperly billed, and they're furious, and they're going to leave the company, ba 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 ba. And he comes away after diagnosing the call center and with a belly full of how bad customer service is. Of course, customer service, when we look at the problem, isn't bad. They made a poor IT choice. So the people sitting there giving the service, they don't have the proper information at their hands, and the billing doesn't work. So all that information about how unhappy customers are, that's really not that important. What's important is that the IT system doesn't work. So I think that when we listen to all the information that we listen to, okay, let's make sure that we are making very few points, not creating a lot of noise. If there are 100 issues, don't present 100 issues. Present 2 or 3 issues, the key issues. Focus on the key issues. You're a magician. You've got 12 plates in the air. Let plates fall. You can't solve everything. What I'm saying is focus, 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 focus. Clean the trash. Ignore the noise. You're juggling. You've got 12 plates in the air. 10 are going to break. Focus on those 2 plates and get them right. And often we listen to what everyone has to say, which is fine. We want to empower everyone, which is fine. In regular days, these aren't regular days. So I think that we need to help ourselves and managers focus and filter and focus and filter and focus and filter, and learn that when you have 12 plates in the air in a time like this, 10 are going to break. Maybe 11 are going to break. Focus. And by the way, that focus changes all the time. That's not the same focus. Which means basically looking at all the rituals the organization has, their senior management meetings, their reports, their KPIs, their performance review, looking at everything and saying, okay, is this important now? Is this one of the plates that I want to keep in the air? I actually had a conversation very recently about midterm reviews. Okay, end of year reviews. The year ends in Israel in September, so this is the end of the year. Okay, what a useless ritual it is now to have an end of year. What kind of stupid thing is that? But it's a ritual. So what's the focus? Well, the focus should be, we have about 60% of the people are in quarantine. We have to outsource a lot of our stuff outside. We have 2 incompetent people that we're searching for. And what are you doing your annual reviews for? Now, why? Focus, filter, focus, filter, focus, filter. Okay. The next issue, I've got 2 more. The next issue is the glorification of working from home. Okay. Wow, that's wonderful, working from home. We had a prime minister who said, never make a tragedy into an ideology. Okay, working from home is basically comfortable. It's alienating. The quality of discussion you have, the quality of relationships you have is far inferior to anything else that you can have in a face-to-face meeting. Face-to-face meetings are often the basis on which relationships, virtual relationships are built. And all of this glorification that we do of working from home, it's like someone being wounded and they're in a cast, and they say, and it's itching. You say, oh, well, you could have lost your leg. No, it's itching. It hurts. I want to get this damn thing off. I think that there's far too much glorification of the wow, wonderful upside of working from home. I think that we tend to have foibles and fashions, and working from home is a royal pain in the ass if you do it too much, okay? And I think if we glorify it, well, it may be popular, it may be, well, should we have a happy hour or a sad hour or this or this, but it's a tragedy. So let's admit it's a tragedy. Let's, as the Beatles say, take a sad song and make it better, but let's not glorify that. It's not fun. I would certainly rather, give this lecture face-to-face, even meant an overnight flight to South Africa. I would much rather than sitting here and looking at this screen. I've met several people here face-to-face. Joseph and I have spoken several times, met many times, ate together, okay? It's not the same as this, and we tend to glorify it. We make a tragedy into an ideology, and by the way, we lose our credibility. And the last point that I would like to make is competence is king, okay? We're talking about a world where if you're competent, you're very important. Even if you're a really difficult team member, and often because you're swimming against the, what's the word in English? Not the tide, the stream. You're swimming against the stream, right? You're swimming like a salmon, swims against the stream. I think in a situation like today, even the difficult people who are extremely competent are important to an organization. We often say in OD, well, we want an organization without very difficult people or very hard people, but very hard times need difficult people, okay? Then I have one other point, and that's my finale. And it's, I don't even know if I can express myself clearly, but I'm going to try, okay? One of the things that I ask myself is, what do people want to hear from their managers in hard times? Do we want to hear an explanation? Do we want to be calmed down? Do we want meaning? Okay, do we want meaning? Do we want us to feel part of the tribe? Clearly, there are things, when we look at things like Trump or Viktor Orban in Hungary, and Prime Minister of India or Netanyahu, we can look at people who have clearly learned to talk to the masses in a way which we as OD people don't understand what leadership is all about. Now, in a tough situation, what do people want to hear from their leader? They want to hear the truth? Do they want to hear facts? Do they want a technocrat? What do they want? Now, why is that an important question? One, to help leaders, but two, what the people will expect from the leader is what the leader probably could expect from us. So you may want to hear good news from your leader, and maybe the CEO wants to hear good news from us. Okay, let's put that on the table, because it will help you air your by working through what your CEO wants to hear from you. You will probably help the CEO understand what he needs to talk to his people about. That important that dialogue is very important. Until now, and I've been very lucky in the coronavirus period, because I have more work now than I've had in years. Okay, until now, the managers which I've seen thrive, I did that thrive, just I put in the R, because okay, I put why thrive. I put in that. I've seen the managers that thrive are very technocratic, very bread and potatoes, very hands-on, not dealing with big issues, but dealing with clearing the road, of the snow ahead of us, not with faluting words, not with promises, not with macro messages, but with rolling up their sleeves and trying to remove obstacles to the next obstacle on the road. That's what I've seen up until now. Nuts and bolts, bread and potatoes. What I have seen fail is people who try to instill too much hope, long-term hope and vision for the long term. Unless, of course, they're lying. And sometimes that works, you know. We're going to come out of this unscathed. It's going to be a tough year, blah, 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 but don't worry. We're not going to fire anyone. We're not going to do this. We're not going to. They're lying. People like to eat that up, but eventually you lose your credibility. At any rate, my point is here that this is not scientific. It's just my experiences up until now. The people that I've seen respected are technocrats, managers, not leaders. Okay, I think I've given enough input to either aggravate everyone or at least get some questions. Why am I muted? Hello?
No, you're not muted.
Okay.
I think everybody else is muted. Okay, so everybody, who's going to be brave enough to make the first comment or ask this first question?
Don't all ask at once. It will be very hard to field all these questions coming.
Liesl?
I have a question. All right, you go first.
No, you go, Karen. It's Natasha. I'll go after you.
Okay, great.
Natasha, Natasha, sorry, I just want to ask that you change your name on the screen.
I tried to. I couldn't get to the settings. Sorry, Liesl.
Okay. If you right click on yourself, you should be able to. She used the funny link that I sent her, so now.
I know. I'll try to figure it out.
Okay, Karen.
So yeah, your point about the performance reviews, I fundamentally agree with you, because I was working with an organization where we forced it last year and it actually broke the process. But I guess what I'm grappling with is, what is the alternative? What options to something that is so entrenched in the business? What options are there to say, actually, let's move away from this? I'd like to just hear your thoughts on that.
I think that you know, what is a project? A project is where, okay, let's take down silos. Let's take down and let's cooperate. That's what a project is. Let's take down our silos and let's cooperate. So I would say that the resistance is putting yourself in a suspend business as usual. And this is a new set. This is a temporary set of practices which we're doing for the present time. So if you're in doubt, ask, don't go through ritual, because we've suspended our regular way of doing business. We have a senior management meeting. We had one. It's suspended now. What do we have instead? We have 2 levels meeting together. Okay, we had reviews. Well, they're suspended. Okay, what we're having now is we're having discussions with people in the critical path of project ABC. Okay, well, what about our bonuses? Well, they're suspended also because we don't have any money. Okay, what about, you promised me, how do you say this? 2 positions, 2 ranks, recs, 2 recs, requisitions. Now, that's suspended also, because the way we do business is now suspended. Everything is new. So and is that fun? No. Does it create resistance? Yes. But I think that your default is suspending the way you did things. I'll give you a good example. I can't see your name. I can see just Hall. What is your first name?
Karen.
It's Karen.
Okay,
Karen.
I just see the word hall. I'm sure you're not called hall. Okay, so so I'll give you an example. In supply chain, there are things which you buy in August. There are things that you buy in January. There are things that you buy in the second quarter. In supply chain now, you buy everything now, because the supplier may not exist in 6 months. The raw materials may not exist in 6 months. If you've read, I think it was yesterday in the Economist, that Kentucky Fried Chicken can't print their menus because they don't know what's going to be available and not available. So planning when you buy what is suspended, because if you have money, you buy things now. By the way, if you don't money, you buy things now anyway, if you want to have things. So it's a total or partial suspension of the way we did things. Now, of course, is that a good answer? No. Do I have another answer? No, because it's unpleasant. It rubs against the fur. But things we're not in a continuation mode. We're in a crisis mode.
Karen, you happy with that?
No, how can you be happy with an answer like that?
No, I think that's just the point. It's shifting the thinking to understand that business is not. I like your idea of suspending. It's people themselves are going, why are we doing this? So getting sort of management and leadership to understand that it's okay to suspend. That thinking in traditional ways of working is no longer relevant. I think that is a nice narrative around saying suspend, and the analogy of we're driving in snow. Let's just focus what's on that sideline, I really like that. So yes, thank you.
And Janine now sent a message saying curve or suspend if you have time to curve. Okay, if you have time to curve. For example, in supply chain, well, let's spread this over a little bit. But the truth is, in some areas, you can actually take a risk to buy something next year. But in other areas, you can't, not because the material won't be there, but because the vendor won't be there. Because a lot of vendors are going open. Yesterday, a huge port in China closed. So the vendors are there. Okay, the vendors are there. The materials are there, but the port is closed. 2 months ago, it was the materials were there, the vendors were there, everything was there. The ports were open, but there were no, I don't know the word in English, containers. There were no containers. There's a huge lack of containers.
Wow.
So curve if you have the time. Do we have the time? Well, at least in supply chain, you don't have the time. Because all you need is one port closing, or the Talat Suez, the Suez Canal closing. There you go, out the window. Curve, yes, if you can really curve quickly.
Atasha.
Yeah, thanks, Liesel. I managed to change my name. Okay.
Did you do that in court also, or just here?
Luckily not in court. I think that would have, yeah. So Allon, I just want to make a comment around what you've been saying. It's not all nonsense. It's actually, I think you've given, well, at least me, some comfort to some facts or practicalities that I'm dealing with teams that I support or individuals that I support. And I'll share an example. So we've got, just like examples of what you sketched, our business and the business I support looks at claims around its insurance claims. And last week, the teams were stressed. The teams are really working overtime for just weekends on end. And this conundrum or problem came to us at a management meeting around, okay, people are burnt out, people are tired, but we still need them to work overtime. And it's almost like all the eyes were on the 8C, human capital, human resources. Okay, what can we do? What can we do to help? And honestly, my mind was a blank. I'm like, we've done everything. We've given leave. We've tried. We've done wellness interventions. We've done. It honestly was a blank. So what I really resonate with is the managers on the floor. They have to focus and filter. Really, they have to solve on the ground when it comes to them. Actually thinking, you said toolkits are, well, obviously not OD toolkits, it's management toolkits need to be a little more practical and empowered with what can I do without having to look for decisions from higher up to help my teams and my people. And 2 days after that conversation in management, we had a long weekend in South Africa. And guess what? Everyone feels a little better because they had a Monday off. So now we're waiting for 2 days later when we're going to go back into everyone's burned out, everyone's worked 14, 16 hours. What do we do? It's actually tough. It's tough to be asked for the solutions and you don't actually know what the solutions are, or you go back into design thinking and it's outdated the day you bring the solution through. So that's just my comment. I resonate with what you're saying. And I think for me, how I internalize it is actually, well, what can you do now? I do like that. And I think that's very relevant because we don't have the luxury of designing and coming up with these wonderful things. As wonderful as they are, they're just so outdated by the time you come up with them. So it was just a comment from my side and a little space actually from us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Atasha, I love what you're saying because design thinking is such a thing at the moment. But even design thinking is not quick enough.
Absolutely, Liesl. We got our just in our organizations, we worked with our little soft skills team to really, just work with the teams, etc. But guess what? We're outdated already. Teams are in a breathing space. We're going to go back to them. What we're facing, I don't know what the comments or maybe the group would say is that really just how teams in customer service, because essentially that's what they are. They're offering a service and pressure on them and the customers themselves who are so stressed and just, it's difficult South Africans to work with. So our customer service teams get battered every single day. It's really, they're taking a battering. It's like they're being screamed at, and they themselves are going through things. So for me, that's, it's a moment of sadness.
Especially, for example, if you're saying the customer is always right, okay,
Yeah,
which is something
exactly.
that we love to train people in. Customer is always right, which of course is people in a situation like this is customers get abused, okay? Service providers don't have answers. A fast reply is maybe in a few days, okay? And then when you hit customer service people with things like, well, customer is always right, and you listen to the recording and you beat them up because they were called some curse word and they answered back. You've got to adapt everything that you're saying,
Yeah, I find it a moment of sadness personally, that there's just so much of ugliness actually.
Sometimes it feels to me, especially when we went through this third wave now recently in the last lockdown, it almost feels to me like the past year, we've almost ignored how severe this crisis is. It was like, it's okay, we'll just get over this wave, then things will be okay. It felt like that, and that there was almost a not acceptance and not the reality almost hasn't landed that this really is a crisis. What happened, what worked yesterday will not work today or tomorrow. and the day after it'll be different again. And yeah.
Now, I think you can see that in almost every country in the world where people understand a lockdown or life is normal. Okay, that's not the case. It's not a lockdown or life is normal. It's a lockdown or a lockdown and or a situation where you're masked and you're with few people in the room and you're vaccinated and still getting sick. It's not either or. It's complex and it's not going away. This back to normal is part of course, there is no back to normal. We love our rituals. We love our rituals, and all these rituals, anyone who read Durkheim knows how important they are. But when your reality changes and you use those rituals, they're not very useful. So another thing you could suggest is let's go through all the rituals and see how useful they are.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and something you said.
Well, what I would like to do, if possible, is to ask people who heard something and disagree with it, because I enjoy when people don't agree with me. I can blame them.
Anyone brave enough?
Can I go, Liesl? It's not a, sorry, Allon, it's Natasha again.
Where are you? I can't see you.
Haven't changed again, I'm here. It was on your glorification of work from home, actually. There are some things that absolutely I agree with, but some things so I don't think it's an either or, I have to say. I don't think it's either work from home or at the office. And I think there is a reality that we are going to, which is the benefits, perhaps the benefits for an organization. You know, it's all those very hard things, the hard reality around cost effectiveness, the hard reality around saving on building costs. So there is that. The benefits on time, the benefits on flexibility. So I don't think organizations explored enough where they could have gotten to that in a normal sense. So now they have an abnormal sense of something positive, which even employees go to. You know, there's some definite pros for employees that have been cited. But for myself personally, I've been working from home for almost 2 years. Yeah, it's going on to just over a year and a half. You can run burnout even at home. Actually, we're trying to balance everything. And you're right, the connection you do not get. So that face-to-face stuff. So for me, I think the best is to navigate how do we get the best of both worlds versus complete ends of the continuum. And I think that's where we can. It's a little bit of a compromise, but it might be.
Okay, I want to say this about that, and then I have a comment from Elaine Erasmus, which I can't read for some reason. I click on it, can't read, so we'll start with Natasha. By the way, I was in South Africa and there was a newsreader called Elaine Erasmus. I remember that. Elaine Erasmus, it was in the 1980s. But anyway, because the name Erasmus caught me. So Natasha, to your comment. First of all, personal disclosure. I live 12 kilometers north of Tel Aviv, and in traffic, it's a 2-hour commute, okay, in horrendous traffic. And finding a parking space here finding even an illegal parking space in Tel Aviv is impossible, okay? And there's a lot of benefits from working from home, a lot of benefits of working from home. If I go on the train, I don't take my car, go on the bus, people are with their masks on their chin. So there's a lot of benefits for working from home. This having been said, there's 3 things. 1, managers like control. They like control. And you don't get the same control that you get when people are remote. So in some ways, it's been a liberating experience that they don't have that control. But they're going to say, we're paying you less now. You're working from home, we're going to pay you less. So I think it's going in an ugly direction. Okay, so it may be comfortable, but you don't have as much chance of unionization. I think you're going to have management reasserting itself and, pardon me, pissing on every tree to get more control and paying you less and making life difficult, and lack of solidarity and a lot of abuse on management's part, because sitting somewhat, I have a satirical character called Gloria. Okay, now she's just written that it's what I see in reality. You're working from home, but you're also a babysitter and you're cooking. So of course you're a part-time employee. I'm going to pay you less. So I think if we keep the advantages of working from home without the exploitation of working from home, that's fine. But I think that it will become abusive, the same ways that families become abusive. Okay, organizations will see more abuse because I don't own you, I don't control you, you're remote, so I'm going to make you comfortable and I'm going to start saving money on you. Okay, so I think there's working from home is wonderful. Okay, it really is. I'm not contradicting myself. I think it breeds abuse over time. Okay, and that's why, for example, we're discussing now in Israel, should we have another lockdown, the 5th or 6th lockdown? The domestic violence here is way out of control. Everyone's getting shot, and you have so much crime, domestic crime. So, should we have another lockdown? Sure, let's bring out the ambulances and start taking the corpses away. There's a price you pay. I think in working from home, there's also a price you pay. And that is over time, and we're into this crisis now more than a year, the pecuniary abuse, the use and throw away approach. I think you're going to see a growing abuse of people working from home, a lack of solidarity. Now, this having been said, I want to, I come from a social democrat background, okay? And I really worry that management will abuse if given the chance, I'm a hawk on military issues, okay? Very right-wing militarily, but so I'm a social democrat, okay? And so I believe that when given the ability to abuse employees, management will abuse employees. And I think that working from home will bring more abuse over time. So the people are going to get comfortable and they're going to get screwed. Okay. Elaine, Linda asked me a question and I didn't have time to read it. Now, how do I go back and read it?
It's a comment. Just to say that for me, the biggest challenge with working from home is a discussion that I had yesterday with one of our leaders. We said suddenly as managers, where it's a support function. They're supposed to look across, look at their partners, how they can support them. It's all now just for them. It's like they go to the zone to say, as long as I look good in the task that I'm supposed to delivering, but they're not making the impact in the environment, because you can't, like you said, that collaboration part, can't force it from a home setup. We specifically base their coffee stations because they're actuaries. We put their coffee stations next to the businesses that they support the most. And there was under the coffee machine, and you check and you talk. So they were that thinking of how can I support you naturally. Suddenly that is so difficult because it's not happening. And that is a challenge. How do you do that in a virtual space? Because it's so plastic, if I can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's plastic. It's I think, and I'm going back to what Atasha said and what Linda says now, it's plastic, it's difficult. So let's not praise it. Let's deal with the issues which are there. Let's talk about the possible abuse. Let's talk about the the damage which can be done. Let's talk about the solidarity issues. Let's not make it into a new religion, but let's make it into yet another problem which we have to work on and not embrace. I think the problem is that we always embrace things so we don't know who we are. You know, we change TQM, TWA, ABC, working from home. Let's not embrace it. Let's look at it and take what we can and be very pragmatic about the dangers which it can solve. Yes, Linda's raising her hand. Again.
Clapping.
Clapping.
My hands, agree.
Very good.
Yeah.
I must say that working with a South African accent, I love accents. This is just, for me, this is like heaven. When I hear all these different accents, I'm in heaven.
Yeah, so Allon just mentioned Gloria. And since we've been having conversations since last year, Gloria now has a van or a fun in her surname as well. So really embracing the weird South African stuff.
No, Linda, you're not as an African. It's perfect. I have a brother-in-law, former brother-in-law, and I'm very used to that. So.
Oh, great. Okay,
yes.
Awesome.
I wanted to check earlier when I changed the view to gallery view, I thought I saw that Joseph unmuted himself when Allon asked for somebody to disagree with him. Did I see right, Joseph?
Yes, but it's not so much disagree, because at 46, he'd be sweating even more now. No, couple of observations. One, I think, and this is intuition of Allon. Allon's learning and response across his decades in Tel Aviv have probably gifted him with a sense of pragmatism around what I might call perpetual crisis. And his offerings today come like a gift to the world in crisis. So that's one observation, that how does one respond? And perhaps this is unconscious in Allon, but the pandemic has really made this such a prevalent and omnipresent feature of our context the world over, that we're beginning to pick up the good ends, the assumptions that go behind Allon's recommendations today. That's observation one. Observation two is that I think he gave us a sense that this is not normal, and that is something that is, anybody can pick up. But what he's saying is that the role of intuition, which was suppressed in normal times, is something that may not be easy to spot. I don't know if I have got that right from you, Allon, but when he says that you can spot that in the technocrat manager, what can we do to enable such talent during such crisis times? So that's the kind of other observation too. And lastly, Liesl, if I might make a different kind of offering, what I've done is to tweet away the major parts of Allon's first offering, and you can find that on Twitter. So with that, I close my mouth and maybe request Allon to respond to what he heard from me.
Yeah. As always, I mentioned just before the call, Joseph has edited several of my articles, and it's a phenomenal learning experience. I think that we need to have first of all, living in this constant crisis. I'm sitting in a room where I sat with my late wife and kids when Saddam was bombing us, and on 4 other occasions. Okay, so I'm used to crisis, unfortunately. And this is just another crisis, which explains why life here is so normal, even though it's abnormal now, because it's just another crisis. Okay, that's number one. Number two, so it is ongoing pragmatism, and I think that we need to look with different lens, okay, at how we look at people. There's a museum in Singapore where you go to and you change your lens and you see a different part of history, okay? I think that when you look at managers now, we need a different set of lens. We have to put this aside and say, okay, now this guy is like he's a pretty dull guy, always stuck in nuts and bolts and fixing things. Now you put on your lenses and wow, he's different. He's different. I see something else. I think that it's clear that some people thrive in crisis and some people thrive in shigra, how do you say that, in everyday, in routine. That happens to me, that especially now, I haven't spoken English in a long time, in routine. And I think that the people who thrive now are probably different than people who thrive in everyday life. So I think that and I think that the consultants who probably thrive now are probably could or could not be the consultants who thrive. Give you an example. If you have a whole bag of products and they're irrelevant, you're not going to thrive. A lot of the people who were displacing me in work in the last 10 years are no longer displacing me because they're selling things. You know, if you come and say, oh, well, I'll teach you the 5-minute manager, the 7-minute this or the 2-minute that, doesn't work. I'm going to give you a conflict resolution seminar, doesn't work. Same thing that the managers who know how to do certain things, especially grow organizations, you know, exactly. Is that an important skill? Scaling up, is that important? I don't think so. It's choppy time. Now there are entrepreneurs, but you know, I'm looking at choppy versus scaling. The scalers don't really have a lot of business. The choppy guys do. People who can solve problems do. People who can visionize or promote vision maybe don't. I think that from a pragmatic point of view, or someone mentioned pragmatism and you talked about different ways of seeing things, I think that probably with a mindset of a little more skeptical, pragmatic mindset, which you find in Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, in places, South Africa certainly has a pragmatic mindset. My God, how many countries deal with problems like South Africa does, or like Israel does, and I think that you need different lens nowadays to look at reality, and people who shine maybe don't, and people who don't maybe shine. By the way, Joseph, you see that in war also. You can try trained people, and he's the bravest, and he's the strongest, and he's this, and he's that. The battle begins, and that's it. And of course, Sonny Liston said, he could hardly speak English, but listen to what he said. Every boxer has a plan until he gets punched. Then he don't have no plan.
Yeah, thank you for that, Allon. Liesl, I leave it to you for the rest of the session. I promised I'll keep quiet, but you drew me out.
No, we appreciate your input. Yeah, so we have 10 minutes left. Is there anybody else?
I'd love to hear people who haven't said anything, even if they just introduce themselves. I'm not sure I'll be able to pronounce everyone's name, but I'll try.
Allon, when we chatted about a week ago, you mentioned work of organization development also as a kind of palliative or end of care type of work. Could you say something more about that?
Yes, I see something on my screen from Shepiso Choco. Is he trying to speak or is she trying to speak?
He raised his hand, yeah.
Okay, so I'll answer Christo's question, then we'll go to him. So Christo, in medicine, we have palliative care. Okay, that's very important, palliative care. My late wife had melanoma for 7 years, and about 6 months before she died, a doctor says, let's stop being brave and let's give her a soft landing because nothing's going to work. That was probably one of the best decisions in a very painful part of my life. Of course, her life was even more painful. I think that sometimes we have to look at a problem and say, well, there's nothing we can do now except ease the pain or be there. Now, I'm not religious. I've never been to a synagogue in my life, and I'm an atheist, but I've read the Bible, okay? In the book of Job, when, or Job, I think it is in English, when he goes through all this suffering, at one point in time, the people come and just sit with him. They don't do very much. They just sit with him because that's what you can do when someone is going through hell, is just to be there. So I think that in OD, there are certain things which we have to say, okay, this is what could be done, but we can't suffer anymore. So if we're dealing with someone who is faced with impossible decisions, okay, anything he or she does is wrong, I think that just being there with the person, okay, even if they're angry with you and they're frustrated with you, one of the managers I work with, by the way, constantly says, what am I paying you for? You're not doing anything. He's been saying that now for 2 years. Okay, I realize that's what people are saying to him. It's a her, it's a she, as a matter of fact, and he puts it on me, but he has someone to say it to. Okay, so I think that there is a point in time of severe suffering when we need just compassion. That's what I'm saying, because we can't do anything. Just allay the pain. Allay the pain, I think it is. Right? Is that what you say? Allay the pain? Okay. Then we had someone who raised their hand.
Yes, it was myself. I'll show a video just to wave. I did take a shower. I just did not get dressed for video. So yeah, thank you very much to the organizers, and thank you, Allon, for the insights shared with us. So, you know, I look after the people division at a company called Sasria. Sasria in South Africa has recently come into the news and has recently become a very popular organization, mainly because of the recent riots and looting that happened about a month ago. So Sasria is a state-owned organization, and we're an insurance company for the government. So basically the bulk of the damages that were caused, have to come out of our coffers. So it's really been a difficult time, I think, for the organization. It goes without saying that the people responsible were not aware of the damage that they're causing to people's lives. In our organization, it's, that's the current reality. So where we have been, as everyone has been talking about COVID-19 and lockdown restrictions, and having to worry about our workforce from a wellness perspective in that regard, and having family members pass away, and some in hospital and you can't even see them. So I think we've dealt relatively well with the COVID-19, and then come another slap in the face, the lootings and the riots, and to a point where, Sasria has been a profit generating, well-managed, state-owned entity, which is not, it's not a lot of those in this country. and we've never had to depend on the government for anything. Instead, you know, we are one of 2 companies, state-owned companies, that have paid dividend to National Treasury. So now we've come to a point where our balance sheet is gone. We are at a point where now we must talk about job losses, where we must talk about, you know, how do we rebuild this organization and what do we need to rebuild this organization. But it's been very difficult in the last month to motivate people. And this is a time when you need them to work even more than they have worked before, because the claims numbers are huge. And so now there was bonuses that were due to be paid in August, and that's been cut, because obviously you can't pay bonuses when you don't have any money. So people have worked hard last year, but now they're not getting their bonuses this year. And now we need them to be encouraged to work even harder. And I'm just wondering, and you know, what are the kind of strategies that, you know, OD professionals use when things seem so doom and gloom, but you want people to be prepped up and motivated and committed and see you through, and you don't want the flight frenzy because you need every hand on deck at this time.
Okay.
I'll stop there.
Now, first of all, how do I pronounce your first name?
Tepiso.
Tepiso. Okay. That is a very salient and important issue which you pose. Number one is that governments all over the world are printing money and going and there's a deficit. Okay, and governments are printing money, and they are. I'm not an economist, but notice that inflation isn't going up, okay, or not seriously going up. That they're printing money because people aren't making money. You need to fuel the economy, and also because there aren't a lot of other clients often, except for government, who can pay or have the money. Because some people don't have money, they can't print it. Governments can print it. Or in other words, what I'm saying is that there is a more and more dependence on government. Okay, in your case you were paying dividends, and now you're going to be asking for support. I think that one of the critical skills that OD needs to build into organizations is to develop skills how you work with government properly. Often the private sector would find ways to avoid becoming like government or shirk government interference or distinguish themselves between us in private business and the hacks who are running government. But the way we look at government, okay, in a time in which we are not temporarily dependent on government, okay, we are increasingly dependent on government contracts, okay, and influence, okay. So number one is to rethink strategy, okay, how you go about building relationships with the government. And unfortunately, in Israel, just as an example, we have a person is a general, and then they leave the army, and 2 months later they surface in a company which is selling weapons. I detest that. Okay, I think our corruption is horrendous, but it works. Right? If I'm the head of the Air Force and tomorrow, you know, I am ordering from people who have built their career around me, it works. So what I'm saying, and of course it's corrupt, but everything, what is corrupt and what is not corrupt, it really changes when do I survive or don't I survive. So I think one of the things that we need to look at a strategic level is how we work with governments to better co-opt them into cooperating with us. That's number one. Number two, at least from what I have experienced, is that often if you're paying to a dividend to the government, you become arrogant. And you've made enemies in the government because you become arrogant, and I think that you make enemies, make enemies. And so, who are enemies? Who are our friends? We need to rethink that, because that we have been paying their bills, and now we're dependent on them. So, you know, whose feet have we stepped on? Okay, who needs to move aside because they've been too arrogant? I think that's an important issue. This at the political level. In terms of the question you asked about how do we get people on board and etc., I don't have good answers for that. Not because I don't know the organizations, because I don't have answers for that. I don't. I think it's important to say that as consultants. I don't have an answer for that. It's like, how can I eat ice cream, which I love, and not get fat? I can't, right? I don't know how to motivate people in a situation like that. I know you can do a lot of things, but I don't have any answers. And it's probably very, very difficult. I'm sure it is. And I think the only thing that I could say is, well, we need to think of something else, because what we know how to do doesn't work. It's a new situation.
Yeah.
Okay? So I don't know. It was something, I really don't. If I wish I did, but I don't. Okay. The only thing that I could think about, okay, the only thing that I could think about is that if there has been arrogance, and if there has been, well, we're paying your bills and blah blah blah, and don't teach us, that would need to be rethought. And I know that there's 2 companies in Israel, or 3 government-owned, which have really made a lot of money and shit on government. Okay, and when the tables turn, it's the night of the long knives. So I think that would be the only thing that I would think about, is strategically, politically realigning yourself with government if the tables have changed and you're on the receiving end of the stick.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. I see that the time is gone. So I won't enter into too much of a conversation. I mean, I think I could talk all day about the things that are happening. And, you know, I think strategically, from a stakeholder perspective, we are doing our best as a business to make sure that we've got the right relationships. And my concern now is for the people inside. We are worried, obviously, about the other people, and we're managing that. And I think we are trying to manage it. And what you're saying makes me feel a lot better, because when you head up a division, sometimes you feel like you're expected to have the answers when we don't. So I think in the little, you know, low-hanging fruits that we've been able to use in the past month, and that has been through our internal communication, just making sure that our staff is informed, you know, all the time. And sometimes we don't know exactly what the plan looks like, the plan for recovery looks like, but it's also to say that to the staff, to say we're still trying to figure it out, but we know that we're going to figure it out. So, yeah.
And we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. It's not, we're cooking something and we'll tell you when it comes out of the kitchen. We don't know.
Yeah.
We're working on it. That builds
Absolutely.
trust.
Absolutely.
What
Yeah,
part of South Africa are you located in now?
We are in Johannesburg.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to my soppy stories.
You know, we did say this discussion is about being and surviving and what OD is supposed to do in impossible times.
Yeah.
And I think what you brought today, Chipiso, is another example of, you know, in South Africa, we've all been aware of and at different levels felt the impact of the riots and the looting. But I was listening to you and thinking, I'm so thankful that you're here, that you brought this view to us. instead of just thinking about shame, you know, all the shop owners and blah, 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 not to discount that. And Sasria, having been a very well-run company who made profit, like you said, one of the only two, who now has to pay out and deal with a workload that is ridiculous, and not one single story that's coming to you is a happy one either.
Yeah.
We have something. We have a company which actually renovates homes after they've been bombed. Okay, so there's bombs go off, and there's always television ads. You know, this is the address, this is the number. If you've been bombed, call. Now, what happens is, 3 months ago there was another war, and there are thousands of homes which need to be renovated. And all you hear is noise and noise and noise. And they have 3 people working on it. 3 people. They've made a lot of noise, but there's only 3 people. And they've come under tremendous pressure. And as a matter of fact, I know someone who was working with them. And the thing is, if you have 3 people, step 1 is you get 50 people, because 3 people can't deal with that. Now, there's a joke that I had a professor at McGill. He said, if you're doing OD to a poultry farmer who doesn't have any chickens, what's the most important thing? Is that he needs to buy chickens, because if he doesn't have chickens, he's not going to be a poultry farmer. So, you know, if you have to do something and you don't have the basics, you get the basics. Otherwise, all the OD in the world isn't going to help. You need chickens, you need money, you need government support. What do you do if you don't have it? I don't know. You're 3 people dealing with 7,000 homes which have been bombed. Sorry, doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And I was also thinking, while the 2 of you were talking, focus filter, focus filter, focus filter, focus filter. You know, deal with what you can in the moment.
Yeah.
We often talk about islands of sanity. What is the biggest piece of a thing that you can make sense of that would feel like there's some sanity, and make your sense there before you frame?
Yeah, that's true. What do you have control over? That's been our, as an expert team, you know, our guiding force. Yeah. No, thank you, everyone. I've kept everyone now.
It's their choice. They can leave. If we were in a live setting, people would have had to get up and walk out the room. But luckily on Zoom, you can quietly and secretly just disappear.
No,
but
that's true.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing with us. Thanks for trusting us to share with us as well. So everyone, I'm thinking we're going to have to say officially goodbye. Because we've run over by 8 minutes. Apologies for that. But like I said, you could have secretly left if you wanted to, or I guess some people might be late for other meetings now, because it was a great, interesting conversation. But thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Thank you for being interested in this stuff. That is what I think is the most important.
And thank you for those who attended, took part, or passively listened, and a big thank you to Christo and to Liesl van Arkel for inviting me. Okay, thank you. It was a pleasure.